Hello, and thank you, and welcome to our Discovery Lecture. I'm so happy to see everybody here and all your lovely little faces. If you're just coming in, make sure you sign in with one of the QR codes in the back and grab something to snack on. I'm going to start off right now with our land acknowledgement, and then I'm going to introduce our speaker, and okay, if you're in my classes, you know I'm excitable anyway, but I'm very excited today because the person who's going to speak to you is someone really extraordinary. So let me just say that founded in 1889, the University of New Mexico sits on the traditional homelands of the Pueblo of Sandia. The original peoples of New Mexico, Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache, since time immemorial, have deep connections to the land and have made significant contributions to the broader community statewide. We honor the land itself and those who remain stewards of this land throughout the generations, and also acknowledge our committed relationship to Indigenous peoples. We gratefully recognize our history. So, I'm going to gratefully recognize another kind of history today when I introduce our speaker. This is Zach Hively Watkins, and he was in a 200 level class that I taught
last year.
I think it was last year, or like 1,000 years ago, somewhere in between those two. He was literally in your position. He was I mean, not counting you, he was one of my favorite students of all time. He is brilliant and funny and smart. He has done lots and lots of cool things. He was a Fulbright scholar. He was in a play I directed once, and he's incredibly good and a fantastic comedic actor. He's also the founder and publisher at Casa Urraca Press, which prints poetry, creative nonfiction, photography, and other works by New Mexico and US Southwest writers. He's the author of 3 books of poetry, most recently Owl Poems and the long-running Fool's Gold humor column. And he lives near Abiquiu. And he is here today to be our speaker, so welcome, Zach.
Awesome. This is cool to see. I was not literally in your spot because this building literally did not exist at that time, I don't think. But it's a trip. It's so cool to be here and see how Honors has not just moved locations, but continued to grow, evolve. I mean, I feel like I'm definitely old school because it was Honors program and stuff. But yeah, Jonna kind of hit the highlights. They invited me here, I guess. I haven't done anything to embarrass the college in the last 20 years, so I'm eligible.
There's still time.
Oh, there's like the next hour. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I have done all kinds of things. I feel like I broke the honors student mold in that I graduated and had no idea what I wanted to do and said, I'm gonna stall on this. So I did a few other things and went to grad school a few years later because it's just gonna delay and I can go live abroad for a year and isn't this fun? And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I had a lot of people who said, you're gonna be great at whatever you do. Look, you're an honors student. You're awesome, you're wonderful. If Dr. Donovan had her way, I would be a professor right now. And I just didn't want that, sorry, Les. But I started to find my way. I said, okay, I know I wanna write. It took me about 10 years to realize that meant I actually had to sit down and write and not just go sit in coffee shops and think of scenarios in other people's lives. And I got involved with editing with a lot of honors people. And there was this community supporting me as I kind of found my way. And it actually coincided with me deciding I wanted to come back to New Mexico, that I said, there's this idea keeping me up late at night. I'm laying in bed thinking about how do you actually acquire an ISBN for the back of a book? And I don't know if you all even know what that is, because why would you? But it's that 13-digit number right here. That's what was keeping me up at night, was how do you get that number? What does it mean to file a copyright? And I went, I guess I'm becoming a book publisher now. And that's when I had to turn back to this community. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't come back to New Mexico, I don't think. And there's something I'm curious about demographically in the room here. So this is a very scientific poll. how many of you consider yourselves from New Mexico? Okay, like the whole room. This is gonna be an interesting scientific study, like one wishy-washy maybe over there. So how many of you chose to come to New Mexico from somewhere else? And that can be an overlap. Okay, so some of you actually picked the place, another couple maybes. And how many of you then, from both of those groups, consider New Mexico now to be your home, no matter where you're from? So it's interesting. There's a fair number of you who would say, I am from New Mexico. I live here now, but it's not my home. That number went down just now. And I get it because I think I was in that same boat. I grew up here thinking New Mexico is second tier somehow. That it was very clearly to me, I was born here, I grew up in Albuquerque. My roots are not here, but I was planted and grew here. And there was always this sense that New Mexico was set apart. And I never took that to mean, oh, we're special, we're stand apart. I always felt like we are set aside. And I wonder, I'm seeing a couple acknowledgements in the room, like, yeah, kind of, but you know, oh my God, there's a scene in this movie shot in New Mexico. It's set in Afghanistan, but I've been to that foothill, isn't this special? Or, oh my God, that pencil on the desk has a 505 fake number etched on it. Like, you feel acknowledged, you feel seen, but it's weird because it was almost this, we don't deserve to be seen. New Mexico is less than somehow. Big things happen other places. You know, unless it's a nuclear bomb, nothing of note has ever happened here. And I remember shortly after I graduated and was wandering around trying to figure out what I wanted to do, someone looked at me and said, you're from a not real part of the world. Like, you just couldn't wrap her head around that Albuquerque was a real place, that New Mexico existed. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. We are different, we're weird. And I had to get away. I was one of you who said, I'm from here, this is not my home. And it turned into this feeling of this being less than somehow, that for many years, even I lived in Colorado, just across the border. And it was like, oh, I'm in a real state. My feet are on the ground. This exists. This shows up on maps on CNN. It doesn't get erased on election night. Here we are. But I'm a book guy, obviously, and I feel like this shows up, this New Mexico doesn't exist feeling shows up particularly for me in literature, where we have New Mexico authors. Who can just shout out some names? Who are New Mexico writers? Well-known New Mexico writers.
Love Anaya.
Anaya.
Tony
Hillerman.
and Hillerman.
And Ann Hillerman, yes.
Barrett Price.
Right?
Mexican.
I think he's like the greatest poet the world doesn't know enough of
Right.
myself, but those are literally the only names I have on my sheet here for my examples. Like, it doesn't exist. And it's easy to take that to mean, oh, there's nothing good here. And I used to work in a bookstore here in Albuquerque who had a local authors section. And yay, cool, we're supporting local authors, isn't this great? But that almost felt like a pejorative. Like, oh, these books cost just as much, but they're only half as good. And the covers suck. So, you know, oh, someone took a low grain photo and slapped some text on it in Word and called it a book. And that's local. And so I was there for a year and I never tried to sell one of those books, let alone actually ring one up. I was like, I'm not gonna force these books on anyone. And I'm curious if this shows up to other people too in other ways, you know, if local artists experience it the same way. I feel like local businessmen maybe doesn't, or a local restaurant, maybe these things capture the local flavor. It's good to be local. You're in the community, which is what we're here to talk about today, community. But there's something less than about everything else. And I could never figure it out. Yeah, I even felt it with UNM, to be honest. Like, maybe some of you feel this way too, where it was not a failing that I graduated high school and came to UNM at all. This is a state school on par with any other big state research institution. It's great. But I still felt this need to qualify it with, oh, I'm just going to UNM. Almost like people needed to acknowledge, oh, you're probably just saving some money. You can go do laundry at home. Good, it's just UNM because it's just a New Mexico school. And I wish I could say I stayed here for the community. I wish I could say I stayed because I loved Albuquerque. I loved the people here. And I can't. And I don't know how you all feel. I'm sure there's a whole lot of feelings in the room about why we've stayed here. Obviously, just in the way you all raise your hands, there's some disconnect in wanting to belong here or feeling like you belong here, no matter where you're from. And the people who chose to come here are a smaller portion of the room, but they exist. And I gotta say, I didn't choose this for the community, but I came back for it. I came back to New Mexico before COVID, thankfully. New Mexico was wonderful because I had friends in apartment complexes who were like, I can't leave the building for 14 days. And I'm like, I can walk out my front door and walk for 10 miles and not see anybody. And that's pretty special about New Mexico. And it can make it sound like I don't want community, but I came back because of the people here, because of this sense of, no, this is different. And there is a community here that I'm realizing is not less than, but different than anywhere else I've been in this world, anywhere else I tried to find my way. And Honors itself is its own community. You know, I don't know but 5, 6, 7 of you in this room, but I feel like, oh, you're Honors kids too. I don't care how old you are, you're always an Honors kid. And I have kind of figured out for myself that community is not where you belong in the moment, but where you can always go back to. And that is, for me, a pretty special realization. You can feel included or not included somewhere in the moment, and that's its own feeling. But this realization that I, a year or two after taking Jana's class in 2004?
2020.
2024. Took it in the future.
It was great.
It was great. It will be. Was great. That I feel like I could go sit down with any one of you over coffee or over a snack in the room back there. We didn't have a snack room, by the way. I'm pretty jealous. And I have a bond with you. I would say we are in this community and it's a place I can come back to, and it's a place you'll be able to come back to someday too, which I don't honestly feel about anything else at UNM, but this right here. And it's a community that honestly, to me, in the best, most challenging myself to grow kind of way, is still out of my league. Like, I look at what the people here do, what the people who teach here who I've published at Casa Urraca Press do, at what they accomplish as teachers with you all, looking at Scribendi every year, things like that, looking at the other publications you all are involved in. I'm like, this place is still out of my league. I'm up here, I'm the star speaker, whatever, but I'm still like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just faking it, trying to get to where I feel on a par with everyone here. But I'm doing that with the support of everyone here. And it's something I hope you all recognize you have. This isn't just a class you can take and get some good marks on your transcript. You have support here. I literally would not be doing what I'm doing if it were not for the support of people in Honors, of Dr. Donovan getting me started, you know, trusting me with editing work, with Amaris being the one who, when I said, I think I want to do a publishing company, she said, let's go sit and have some nachos and I'm going to tell you you should do it. This is the kind of support you get in your community, and maybe Honors isn't your community, but find your community, hold on to it, let it inspire you. Because this sense of coming back right now feels very rare to me. And I actually hope it's not rare. I hope it's something that most people get to experience, to realize you can go somewhere. They say you can't go home again, but you can be welcomed somewhere again and again. Find your place and let it be what grounds you and inspires you to do the thing that keeps you up at night, the weird ISBN number thing you cannot stop thinking about. Let your community be the place where you can say, guys, what do I do with this? How do I turn this into something? How do I make something? And it's that experience that's made me think about New Mexico differently. And it's that experience that made me want to publish other writers here. When I was laying up thinking about how do I start a publishing company? I never really honestly sat and thought, gee, what do I want to publish? Do I want to do science fiction? Do I want to do history? Do I want to do romance? It never occurred to me. I just knew right away, I want to be the champion for the people who represent this place. There is such a range of what it means to be New Mexico, and it's so much more. It includes, but it's so much more than the Hillermans and Rodolfo Anaya and the people that anyone outside the state has heard of. And we're so much more. The world deserves to hear what New Mexico has to say. We don't have to hide ourselves, pretend we're just a set for Afghanistan in a movie. We deserve to have the world hear us. This community deserves to be trumpeted. And so that's what I set out to do, that we don't have to be provincial. We don't have to be marginalized. We are so particular. I think we let ourselves be marginalized in the United States in the global sense because we're tucked away, because we are different and we're proud of it, but we want to keep it quiet. And there's something really special about that. There's also really something special about some of us standing up and going, hey, look, we've got one of the greatest, sorry, Barrett, but I think one of the greatest poets in the world sitting here, who has no desire of his own to go out there and become the world's most famous poet. But I think he should be. So that's my goal. And I think Amaris isn't here yet, is she? I think what she's doing with graphic memoir is phenomenal. And it's so accessible and so particular to her style that I want the world to know it. And so I brought some of these books, and at the end I do invite you all to come up and flip through them, look at them and see what some of the people here are doing with fanfare. But it was that idea too of, okay, how do I build this community, right? How do I say there's these great writers out there? It's so much more than, oh, let's just put your words in a book and print them off and done. How do we create this community? And it continues to shape. I started out saying, I want to support New Mexico printers. I want to support New Mexico paper companies. I want this to be as, entirely local as possible while also championing writers. I figured out pretty quick, you cannot affordably print books in New Mexico and actually get them in bookstores anywhere. So I had to compromise that to champion New Mexico writers. But I also said, you all kind of laughed when I said, oh, the cheap looking books. And I said, I refuse to do that. So I said, every single book from people I published, that was my #1 rule, cannot feel like a cheap book. I want the world to pick up a New Mexican book and not go, oh, it's just a New Mexico book. How do I make us look and feel in a tangible physical artifact the way I feel inside when I read these people, and still being particularly New Mexican about it? So that's what Casa Urraca Press is all about. It's about, let's make New Mexico be known for more than nuclear bombs and Georgia O'Keeffe. Let's see what all diversity we really have, what perspectives we really have that deserve to be heard. So I wanted to share a few ways with you that the poets I've published talk about home. And I want to do it without, literary commentary. I want to just give a touch of why I felt like I could champion these writers, and then just let the work speak for themselves. These little excerpts speak for themselves. So this is kind of like a cover band rock concert, but without anything exciting. But I wanted to read a few of these. This one I'm going to start with is the only person who's not in this room or going to be in this room shortly, actually. Her name's Ana Martinez. She's now the City of Albuquerque Poet Laureate, and she was not when we published this book. And this was the book early on. Before I'd even published my first one, someone said, you need to check out this woman. And when I read her work, I said, okay, she's writing about Albuquerque. She's writing about the city I grew up in from a perspective that is completely alien and foreign to me, because I'm not a Chicana woman. I did not have these experiences. I did not live in the same parts of the city. And yet I recognized it. And even when she's talking about how rotten things can be, there is such love for place. So this poem of hers is actually, I picked this one to read because it's set, you know, a short walk right over here. It's called Late Night 66. Saunter by the window of a well-lit joint after a long, long day. See feta crumbles on crisp spinach salad, carafe of red wine. They dine at a table for two with a checkerboard cloth, holding eyes across settings as you dart your own because you've just $1 for bus fare. Stop. Wait beside the spilling trash outside a new window, a bar that fixes shrimp platters for warm Democrats who stir and sip margaritas, crunch on ice and savor coarse salt from the rim. You turn and hell no, dude must think you've a bag of tricks way he licks his lips, whistles each time he circles the block in his cancered pickup truck. So you walk slowly on past and over the shoes of lives being sucked inside glass bottles, disguised as brown paper bags, like the tricks being turned by the twig of a girl, maybe 18, stumbles onto Central from an unlit alley, pants undone, eyes glazed, sunken mouth, bare feet, offering fun to everyone she meets, taken by the driver of a blue minivan through a sliding back door, baby seat in the back, erase that if you can. Outrun the bus to the next stop, outrun the bus to the next stop, get on at last. Hope that stinky ass don't sit by you in greasy Levi's. He slept and sweated, smoked, stroked, petted, and scratched his balls all week long in. Glad to see instead, you get a skinny dude in a self-proclaimed righteous mood. Tells a friend that his 21st birthday is Friday, and all he really needs to set himself free are 2 fat chicks and a fat green stash. And you try not to laugh and take home hope for the world from wherever you can. Because damn, tonight it's ramen for dinner again. Yeah, and that was one that struck me because I was like, okay, I lived right here, I walked right there all the time, and that was never my experience. And that, to me, is what the power of literature is. It's saying, get in someone else's skin, understand what it's like to be one specific other person in a familiar context. So I've been really proud to publish her. And the other books I'd like to read from are all to really build on this sense of community. It's no accident that so many of the authors we published at the press are honors faculty, former honors students, and partly, yes, because I know these people. I'm able to connect with them and read their work, or I'm familiar with their work. They've also been my champions in my community that's made this happen. You know, I had this harebrained idea. I mentioned sitting down with Amaris. It was Amaris and Vivi Price here were the 2 people I turned to and said, I have this crazy idea. What do I do about it? And they both said, well, you want to publish me? And the fact that they believed in me enough to do that is really what got this started and has helped me build this own literary community in New Mexico. So I wanted to read a poem that Barrett wrote about a different aspect of home and community here. And it's about a photograph taken of Chaco Canyon here in New Mexico by Kurt Giddings. Am I saying that right, Barrett? And to me, it's a different sense of community because it reaches into the community of the land. You know, John, I did the land acknowledgement at the beginning. It reaches into that sense of community here and the things that we all share in the geographical space that is New Mexico. I really feel like a cover band now reading Barrett's poem in front of him, but here goes. I didn't prep him right, I made him get up here and do it for me. It's called Approaching Storm, Pueblo Alto, Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. Lightning strikes have left in death bodies of teachers and hikers in our lifetime there. We've missed the hit several times ourselves, in that place where nothing can go wrong, where lightning's luck, where no false steps can happen, no tragedies, no accidents, no truths beyond what comes to be in a place so powerful it fills up doubt, fills up fear, fills up suspicion, and even the cynical demons that work in reason, fills them up like sand in crevices, leaves the landscape of the mind steady as geology is, most of the time. It is oracular and jubilant to be there, self-making in the ruins, from which the future unfolds in psychic spaces so real, perfection strikes right over it. So white, so loud, so free of all possible constraint, it appears in the space of your eye, a blink of lightning, like traces of grace in mishaps never come to life. We have been to Alto, climbed the cliffs, chased down by thunderheads darker than philosophy, sure brain for anything, on snow that makes the lichen slick as ice, and have survived our chances to become the future within us. Nothing gets in the way of what will be. Though a single lightning in the mind, one thought can change it. And now I'm just going to embarrass a couple other people. Amara still must be in class, but I do encourage you all to come up and look at her book. It's really strange to try and read from a graphic memoir. It's like, you know, you can't read someone a comic book out loud without seeing the pictures. So, and I didn't want to make anyone set up AV just for one slide, but this one, I'll have a bookmark if anyone wants to come see the picture, but it reads as Amaris does so well as a poem anyway. This one is called Rio Rancho Estates. Speculation in the desert means undeveloped plots on sandy loam, means the city's discarded things end up there, perfectly preserved. You know, and I picked that one because it's such a, Betsy's over here nodding because she knows she's going to get her turn, but she's a hiker who also wanders upon this. There's this sense of people, you know, here that people have been where you are because of the things left behind, of the refuse, of the waste. Things here preserved differently. They don't break down. They don't get overgrown. And it took me going a lot of other places to realize that's not normal for a lot of places. The sense of human presence and history here just feels different to me than it does in other places. So that's where I picked that one. And the last one I'd like to read for now is from Betsy James's book, Breathing Stone, which many of you know Placitas, just north of town. Betsy spent several years there back in the day and wrote every day, and this book was the result of it. But I wanted to read this bit because of the very personal human connection in this community that she placed herself in. And this is prose, not poetry. Though with Betsy, you sometimes can't tell the difference. The church caretaker, Arsenio, the whistler, said that 15 years ago or so, somebody in the village kept 100 goats. At least I think that's what he said. The conversation was in early morning and Spanish, so it had vague spots. He told me the name of the cloud that pours over the mountain shoulder, signaling the end of the dry season and the beginning of the monsoon. La Nube Valdeza, the Valdez cloud. I wish I knew why. In my forays into the centuries deep history of this place, I am as random and small as a hen pecking up scratch. And yeah, I really appreciate Betsy's way of capturing the way it feels to arrive in New Mexico. Those of you who said, I chose here, she's one of those who got to choose here and I think continues to choose it and choose this community. And so I wanted to read those to you, not just to show off my writers, though definitely to do that too. But I just wanted to get you all with a few creative juices flowing, because for the rest of the time, oh yeah, we got plenty of time. No one wants to hear me stand up here for another 40 minutes and just talk at you. So when Jonna came to me and said, let's talk about community, I said, well, what if we write in community? So for the next rest of this session, we are going to write in community. It's known as this really solitary act, writing, right? You have the writer Garrett, you go off and do your own thing, and you work and work and work and slave and slave and slave all over your stuff until suddenly it exists in the world. And I'm realizing that is not how any writing actually happens. The act of putting pen to paper or fingers to touch screen is itself solitary, but that none of this happens alone. None of these people could have written these books without the community they're in. And so I said, let's do an experiment. So full disclosure to all, this is something I have never done before. I don't know if it's ever been done like this before, but I'm adapting a writing workshop that we've done through the press to make it about community. So I really want to express the ground rules here of this is completely free. There is no judgment about what gets produced. There is no judgment of quality, of capability. The goal is simply to create something in the next 40 minutes that did not exist when you came in this room. That is the only goal. So let's look at my paper and make sure I'm not skipping steps here, which I'm very capable of.
So feel free to write on your phone or write
Yep.
on paper or write on your neighbor.
Yes, your
That's
computer,
really
your-
community.
the wall. I think we have crayons for the wall. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So the first part is probably the most solitary part of all. The author Pam Houston once called this concept glimmers, and they are the things. Yeah. The idea of a glimmer is that we all have this. There's things that have caught our attention that we were not told to pay attention to. They're the things that simply caught your eye, caught your attention, that you've been chewing on in your brain, that picked on any one of your senses and you noticed it. And her idea is that those things that speak to you talk to you for reasons. They resonate with something in you and they're shiny. That's why she calls them glimmers. So what I want us to do on whatever your writing device is, I know we all have at least a phone, but whatever you like to write with, we're gonna take, what did I say? Let's take 3 minutes. And what I want you to do is for 3 minutes, try to not stop writing, but remember from this morning, from this week, from this month, those things that have caught your eye. And this is a writing in community, so just know if you write something very personal, it's possible someone else is going to see it. That's my only disclaimer. Otherwise, you are free to write whatever it is that has caught your eye. So I'll just take a moment to get your materials ready. I will start a timer. And we can all just embrace the awkward silence that's going to ensue. And thank you all for participating. And go. I'm interrupting myself to say if you feel more visually inspired, like Amaris, and you want to draw instead of write, that is fine. All right, take a moment to wrap up the glimmer that you're on. Okay, cool. So now I want you to look at your whatever you have, doodle, list, rambling paragraph, whatever. And I want you to pick 2 of your glimmers. Maybe you only have 2, maybe you wrote down 20, I don't know. But I want you to pick 2 of them and whatever you need to do, underline them, circle them, copy and paste them, cut them, whatever. But I want you to just isolate 2 glimmers, 2 of the things that are glimmering to you right now. Cool, and now is where we get freaky. So I want everyone to get into small groups, 2 or 3. A pairing or a reading.
That's a technical term.
It is, we use that in publishing.
Agreeing.
But this is gonna require you to actually move your physical bodies.
Okay, now I'm looking at other humans.
I know.
Yes. I can like just share all of our glimmers.
No. Okay, I think everyone's in groups or is getting in their group right now. So what we are going to do, if you're in a group of 2, you're obviously just gonna pair with each other. 3, you're kind of gonna go around your triangle, but you're going to share your 2 glimmers with one of your people. So everyone in about 10 seconds will have 2 new glimmers that were not originally theirs.
So.
What do you mean? You can't understand this.
Yes. So make sure you have your new glimmers written down on whatever you're using. Or if it's an illustration that you can see it.
I just gave them my glimmer and they're gonna write it. You get
There was this about I was on a train like watching slips on Saturday. My favorite personal example I shot with my friends. Oh, like the restaurant. That's like just like my love. Oh my god. I don't know.
Okay, even if you're still sharing, that's fine. We can wrap that up in a moment, but I just want to make sure people who are done can get started. You all have already just done one of the most vulnerable parts of being a writer, which is sharing with someone else the things that catch your eye. It's very vulnerable to say, I notice caterpillars on trees or whatever it is. So thank you all. Congratulations on getting this far. But once your group has shared in whatever context needs shared, that's fine. You can keep talking. I want you to then we're going to do a few short minutes of free writing. So, or free doodling. And the idea is take those 2 new glimmers you have, or the glimmer illustration that you have, and just start writing whatever associations that inspires in you. But the goal of the free write is to just not stop. Let it be stream of consciousness. It might go off on a different tangent. It might end up somewhere completely unrelated. That's okay. You're using these glimmers as your starting point to create other thoughts that just occur to you. No judgment, no one is going to read what you're writing right now, so you can just let it rip. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, but if you need to finish sharing, go for it, and then jump into your free write when you're ready.
My last one was the sound of essentially just specific sounds.
Oh, well, I really wrote a little thing.
The sound of like
That was
skates
so
and sticks or sticking my face.
There's no, at least it's actually invisible.
Like down and just playing, but it's like
The invisibility is part of it.
everything.
So-
Take a moment to conclude the thought you're on. Cool. Now, this is rapid fire. We're making stuff. What we're gonna do now is erasure poetry, or what I like to call ransom note poetry. So whatever you have, if it's a sketch, I want you to take this chance to pick a piece of it and hone it. If you've been writing, this is where I want you to go through And again, however works on your writing implement, pull out, circle, underline, whatever the words, phrases, etc., that speak to you most, that are their own glimmers, that feel the hottest, that feel the coolest, that feel like your favorite. I want you to go through, and I call it ransom note, because then what I want you to do is to take those and stitch them together into something very short. It can be one line, it could be a 3-line haiku, whatever, but the goal here is concise. So you're taking the hottest bits of what's there, pulling them out of your free write and putting them together as their own unit. Yeah, and again, release the idea of perfection, completion. I just want you to have something that emerged from this. Yeah? Cool. Take a moment to do that. All right, let's bring that to conclusion in the next few seconds here. Cool. You have just created something, a small something that you did not create on your own. You created it in communion with the things that sparked someone else, which I think is pretty cool. It also means that in your little writer pod, you have 2 or 3 or 4 pieces that are all connected in the same way. And I bet you're honor students, some of you see where this is going. What I want you to do in your group now is to share the piece that you have just ransom noted together. And then you're gonna have all 2 or 3 or 4 of them. And I want you as a group to arrange those things. Don't worry about editing them, putting them together or whatever, but I want you to arrange them in an order so that they become the draft of a poem put together. Yeah? So take a moment and you can read them to each other, show them to each other, whatever, and then figure out as a group the best way to order them.
How did I got there? Wait. No, of course. Across the year, like everyone in the groups. That's right. Would you like them to solve? Set up across the street. Across the yeah. It's good to be not very good. I should know that. I'm sitting behind yeah, and it's a lot of things are changing. Mine's much more serious. It's why I collaboration.
When we. They get together, even though yours.
I literally was all over.
I kind of like.
It's dark, it's like it's like I had this fun this thing declared to learn in the library and but I want
Really echoed this
really
we started to hear something from them. And then,
I was
and then
talking about
this, and then. Try that.
No, I wish that mine was like artistic, it's just not. It's very. I think I like it because there's no. Sorry.
All right, we take one more minute. One more minute.
Together. Yeah, definitely.
Don't be good then.
And we got it.
Where I thought today was. We got rid
Like the arm was lost there. Yeah.
Show off, but we're brilliant.
Well, you're gonna get to show off if you want. Okay, raise your hand if you're like absolutely not done. Okay, let's take like 30 seconds more, a minute more, and wrap it up. Remembering it doesn't have to be perfect or final.
Been too much. You don't have to say.
It's not what I expect you to do today. It's kind of fun.
Good, but.
Yeah.
It's like you discovered something.
In a series.
You wanna read it?
I think it's.
Yeah, if you want to.
Do you think of yourself treating very cool? Like. Through the phone. That's such a great thing.
Okay,
It's made it more. Yeah.
you guys, I just want to point out that, like, I don't even count the groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's like 10 different things now that exist in this room that did not exist 30 minutes ago. And that's like the magic of creation. And you got to do it in community. Like, none of these things could have existed with one person. None of them could have existed from one person sitting in a room with 40 other people. That came out of disparate people paying disparate attention to disparate things. And now you have a unified thing that may not be final, may not be perfect, probably isn't, but it exists. And that's what's so freaking cool about it. So recognizing that these things are just brand new birthed baby poems. Is there any groups who would like to read the poem as it is right now? No commentary, no justification, just reading it as it is.
Our group does.
Do it.
Oh, I have to give a caveat. There's a bad language word in ours, and it came from me. Person. I know. You probably never heard it before, and if you need me to define it for you, I will not.
Is it stupid?
It's not.
Skates and sticks scraping against the ice, a mist settling across the arena, the deep grooves on the ice after a long practice, hockey in the desert, and then it's utterly fucking quiet. I'm living in the moments of silence, and then it's 3 a.m. Why is there music? There are things are changing. It all feels very human, marking the beginning or the end. You decide.
Yes, I'm applauding for my poem.
Yes, you should. Awesome, thank you all. That was great. I love, again, the pieces are very disconnected and yet you just put them in conjunction and I go, there's a relation. And I get curious, like, what are these saying to each other? And that's really cool. So, yay. Who else would like to read one aloud? Back there, go for it.
So 2 of us drew something.
Oh,
One
cool.
of us wrote, and so we kind of just came up with like a story, which is there's a dog who's sniffing flowers, but oh no, mosquitoes come and bite come over and bite him because mosquitoes are awful. But there's a skeleton cowboy who saves him from the mosquitoes.
Awesome. You know, it's really cool to be able to put ideas, words, and illustrations together. There's ways that they can talk and they can either complement each other or counterpoint each other and accomplish a lot more in different ways than just words can. So that's really cool.
And you should put a picture of it in your little write-up. Okay, I will, because I really want to see that now.
Anyone else? Who else? Dr. I'll go for it.
So we're gonna round
Collectively.
Great.
The sky was yellow, or was it the reflection of the trees? The weather was unusual, much like a painting, creating desperation and sadness. A gray figure on yellow canvas of the young woman with a yellow world.
Standing in change, to endure is sometimes all we can do. Not to grab for some old easy rescue.
feeling invisible, changing right before her own eyes. But no one else can see beyond the blind of her experience.
Vast complexities can go unnoticed. Sharp details stand out like cactus points, like needles on a pine. Contrast cannot help but catch the eye.
God, is that a great poem?
Yes.
So collectively,
I just found out, thank you all for reading, for writing. If we have time at the end and people want to read more, we can. I just want to make sure we leave space. I know you all have other classes to get to and things. But I just learned there's this honors community mural thing you can submit things to. So if your group decides, oh, we want to do something with this poem, this is one option. John, I don't know if there's other places they can use these in write-ups and sharing them. But you're welcome to give these poems life beyond this if you want.
If you're in one of my classes, put it on the Discord. I'd love to see them all. It would be terrific.
Yeah, I just always ask that you give everyone in the group credit for it because you all wrote it together. Or you can have a pen name that's, you know, your 3 middle names put together or whatever. I do want to leave time for Q&A or commentary, but I also really believe, and I hold myself to this at Casa Urraca Press, in not asking anyone to do anything that I'm not willing to put myself through. So since I just asked you all to read your poems, I want to finish with one of mine that I feel I wrote in community. Because Barrett over here said this line to me once, probably more than once. I don't know where it came from for him, but I took it and I said, there's a poem there. And I wrote this. So it is to the secret life of making new things, which you all just did. The physical world of atoms and molecules plays by a separate rule book than the world of our mindscapes. Alchemy is a metaphor of understatement. Who bothers turning lead into gold when you can turn graphite into stories, mythologies, entire lives lived over and over again? Or wood into spoons, sand into glass, mud into houses? Plenty of people, that's who. Every being has the creative kernel at the core, but the life of making new things remains so secret precisely because of what it does not demand we make. Sense, money, a difference. What freaks practice dark magic in the woods for no wicked purpose at all? Making newts out of reeds and twigs for the pure love of newts doesn't fit into the world as it is. It's no crime to fill your belly off your gifts and your hard work. All of us who live our own secret lives understand how the worlds bleed together. But even the fellow secret keepers cannot know the secrets of another's magic. It is at once precious, as individual as personality, and easy, never flippant, costing nothing, the only free lunch in the universe, creating anything at all from nothing at all, and creating ourselves the same way. Thank you all for coming, for being brave, for jumping into something you did not know you were jumping into and doing it anyway. So we have time for questions if anyone has scathing commentary. I'll take it.
I have a question.
Yes.
How many books do you produce? How do you decide what you produce? How do you run a press?
Oh, man, we do not have enough time for that.
Okay,
But
what are the top two things about running a press?
so, how many books? It varies. So this started in 2020. This is what, year 4? And I would say we probably average 7 or 8 or 9 books a year, which is a lot. And
It is a lot.
you know, the selection process is really quite simple. I go, is it a work I believe I can champion? You know, there's other people who help with different aspects of the press, but it is ultimately me. And I've read some beautiful manuscripts that I've said, but I'm not the right person to champion this. You, to the writer, you need to find someone who is your champion for this. And this kind of comes back to what I said with you all, finding your community. If I'm not the right community for someone, I'm not gonna waste their book on me. It's gotta be something that I can say, yep, I will go to bat for this. And that's what I hope you all find in your communities, whatever it is someone who will do that for you and with you.
Following up from that, what would you say is like your favorite kind of themes to see in work you publish?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know if it's a theme exactly. Because every writer surprises me with what they end up writing. But I really like seeing works that have a conscience. That recognize the world outside them, beyond them, and are curious about it. And compassionate. I think those two largely go hand in hand. So yeah, I don't know that curiosity and compassion are themes, but that's the heart I look for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who's your dream person to publish?
I got him, Phoebe Price over here.
Yeah, good answer.
Yeah.
Who is my dream person? Tom Robbins.
Aw,
He's not New Mexican, but I don't make rules I can't break, so
he's still alive.
he is still alive.
Let's write him into let's email him now. Great. Any last questions or thoughts? All right, well, I'm so pleased that you were able to join us. I'm so pleased that you were able to join us. We're gonna give you a thunderous round of applause. I'm gonna remind you, if you came in a little bit late, to scan the QR code so you can do attendance. Take one of those snacks as you go. Those apples came off of a tree, a real tree. So take one. And head on out. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.